God, we heard the screaming.
You picked a bad spot.
So I want to talk about From some more. A lot of people are very interested in this show, and a lot of them, from what I'm getting, are genuinely frustrated with certain aspects about the show, which I will talk about as well. Because, man, this show is engaging to me because the mysteries are drawing me in. And I know that's like a double-edged sword because, okay, a lot of the comments, and I'll show a comment here, are frustrated that season 3 of the show, not a lot of stuff happened. Before I get into it all, I need to thank you all for all the comments I got in the last video, all the responses, there's a lot of people that hated the show more than I thought. So thank you for liking and subscribing.
I don't know what's going on here. Right.
So this is really the introduction to the Jade character, the one that I kind of called Tony Stark. Because of his profession, he's a software engineer, and he was, I believe he said that he just recently sold his company. He was out to celebrate, and then he ended up in the town, to his frustration. But at first, he's like, oh, this place is just a big, not a game show, but it's not a fun house either, an escape room.
Is there like some kind of puzzle I have to solve?
That's a bit of a stretch, but I guess if that's how you're like trying to adjust to a very scary situation. Of course, you have Boyd, who is not sure about punishing Frank because it's basically a death sentence. It is a container he made that doesn't have a talisman, and as we know, if he did put a talisman there, it would actually work. They learned that from the RV in the first episode. That also could explain why this one doesn't have a talisman. And I kind of posed this question in the last episode, that it's like, is it really Frank's fault entirely because there was another parent home as well that could have nailed the window shut? Why wasn't the window nailed shut if they were living there for months? I've got questions. Maybe the show will answer one day. It's not going to. It's never going to answer that.
Hey, I doubt it.
I love the scene though where Jade heads out of Colony House, very casually steals this woman's bike. It's like, oh, is this mine? And then he just goes off. I was like, wow, really? That's good stuff. That's top tier content right there. Honestly, I feel like a death sentence is a bit extreme, especially for like, I don't know, like, okay, like imagine you're just stuck in a town with a bunch of random people. I don't think death sentence is something most people are gonna be comfortable doing like right away. I would think more they would do, okay, put a talisman in the box and then just scare them. You'll be surrounded all night by these creatures trying to like convince you to open the door, right? I think that would be punishment enough for most crimes. But speaking of the consequences letting people in, we still have that family that was murdered by the creatures in the first episode. Jim and his family are moving into that same house. They never really cleaned up the blood. Maybe they didn't really get a chance to. And Father Catry is kind of showing them around. And it is a very shocking scene. A very good scene. I like the scene a lot.
Holy fuck.
Most of this episode is actually going to be Jade wandering the town, which doesn't really have a name. I don't know why they never named the town, actually. You think they would. And people are just putting up with his bullshit. He is an asshole character, I would say. It's true. But he is one of my favorite characters regardless.
You have some type of prompt that lets you know which direction to go, but this is just some next level shit.
So it's funny rewatching season 1 because there's a lot of things that are done that do actually get more progress mystery-wise. One of them is what Victor is doing here. He's kind of wandering outside with his notebook, kind of looking at the trees. He's noticing the trees are not where they're used to be. You got to keep in mind that Victor has been there for like, I don't know, 40 years, so he knows pretty much like every detail of this town. Trees moving. That is another mystery that I'm adding to my mystery list. It's not solved even by season 3. So as Jade is exploring the town, he finds a cellar and he's like, okay, this is the next escape room sort of mini project I gotta do to get out of here. He's having a great time. He doesn't know anything's really serious is happening. Real creepy. Turns on the light. We'll talk about the lights and how that works in a later episode. And then he sees this guy, this like person that's crushed by this boulder. He gets a jump scare. The guy looks at him and yells like, bah. Jade falls backward, looks up, he sees a sign on the ceiling. And like, okay, the signs that Jade is now going to be seeing starting from this point on are all going to be playing an important part in this story, somewhat, kind of, will maybe, but it's not yet really explained what its meaning is. So I want to talk about Boyd, the sheriff, and his use of the box.
I built the goddamn box as a deterrent. It's supposed to scare people.
And Boyd's just shocked. He's like, aren't you supposed to be telling me that, okay, you should just forgive Frank?
What happens next time?
Father Catry is like, we need him in the box.
What's in the fucking box?
And like I said before, losing your family like that is enough of a deterrent.
Aren't you supposed to be talking to me about the virtues of mercy?
One little detail I like is, okay, there's a scene where Sheriff goes to check out the box he made. I like this detail of the box has a wheel on it, and it's, you know, interesting addition. Okay, so they have this circle jerk. No, they have this circle meeting. What am I saying? They have a meeting where they form a circle to talk about, okay, not only the Frank situation, but also we have the Paul Rudd family that they need to choose where they want to live. Do you want to live in town or do you want to live in Colony House? Colony House, they say, is like, I mean,
to live for today because tomorrow is not guaranteed. You will select the flower.
and then you got the regular town people. Frank there shows up and he's so destroyed from what he went through that he's just like, he gives the talisman back that Boyd gave him because he wanted him to like at least survive the night in the box. And he's like, I want to be with my family again. And it's a very serious scene. Good performance.
God damn, I love this. It's scary. It's dramatic. It's okay. Whoa.
Jade, of course, you know, being the crazy guy that he is in this episode, he shows up and he's like, he very peacefully takes the rock. He decides to stay in town.
Ah, damn it. Ow. Damn. Ah.
So this is the moment, and this is a good scene, actually. This is the moment that Jade actually believes that, okay, it's not an escape room.
Hello. I'd like to play a game with you.
You're actually in a very terrible nightmare that you can't escape.
But you need to understand what's going on.
Because the deputy sheriff shows him the dead body of his friend, the friend that he lost in the very first episode when Sarah killed him.
Oh.
Jade's reaction to that is, it's pretty good. It's a good performance. I'm not too sure why he wouldn't also think that's a prop. You know, if he's believing this entire town's an escape room, then why would that? You know, maybe he was developing doubt in his mind. And speaking of great scenes, we get the death scene of Frank. Frank's in the box. It's dark out. He's huddled up in a ball in the middle of this thing, and you start hearing whispering and laughing as these creatures, as you know, the creepy people from the woods approach the box, and he just has to accept his fate. There's not much you can do in that situation. They all sort of turn to vampires whenever they actually attack people. Creatures otherwise are just in human form and just slowly walk towards you. So the next day, Boyd has cleanup duty. He's got to go out there and he has to clean up Frank. It's quite a mess. The entire box is destroyed. Yeah, they don't really leave much, do they? The Boyd has to like throw Frank in a wheelbarrow and take him all the way to the church for burial. Boyd actually says something to Father Catry where he's like,
You gonna mention in your little service how you're the one who wanted him dead?
it is your fault Frank is dead. You were the one that really pushed Boyd to do it. There were probably other options, but like either way you cut it, the guy probably wasn't going to live much anyways because he was destroyed. He would need a lot of counseling to get over what he saw and what Boyd made him see. Because if you remember from the first episode, he grabbed Frank. Boyd, the sheriff, grabbed Frank, dragged him through their house and made him look. So he is understandably very destroyed.
Well, that's empty.
Yeah, that's kind of the point. Come on.
So basically, Jade is like, okay, I saw a strange symbol on the ceiling there, and then I saw a dead guy crushed by a boulder, and then he yelled at me. And the deputy sheriff, I'll give him a pass for this because he's like, okay, some people have difficulty adjusting to this new environment. The town is very scary. And he's basically implying you're just hallucinating. You're seeing things.
Come on, don't look at me like I'm fucking crazy, okay? I know what I saw.
I'm not.
It's like, okay, for this first one, I'll give you a pass because not a lot of people are really seeing things just yet.
I want to show you something.
Let's show you one big piece of the puzzle. This is another mystery that needs addressing. So he takes Jade to the sheriff's office and shows him a map and the map has all these pins in it. The pins are spread across specifically America. So keep that in mind. This whole thing is just happening to the United States. And at each one of these pins, this is where somebody was traveling on a road and they just ended up in this mysterious town. So it's not just one specific place that's haunted, you know, with ghosts.
The ghost of Christmas past.
That is fucking impossible.
Yeah.
And like Jade does something here that I would do. Like okay,
And if you can't, yeah, it does that sometimes.
the machinery in town kind of gain electricity, then it goes away. And Jade just grabs that radio and he just takes it with him. And he's like, that's what I would do. If I were in this town, I would be like trying to understand how it works. That makes the most sense.
That's better. Easier for quests.
Because Victor has been there for as long as he has, but he knows a lot about the town and a lot of mysteries as well. One of them are these, what they're called, they don't name it here, but they're called faraway trees. They're basically teleporting trees, and they can be very dangerous. They basically work by anything that goes in it, whether it be an object or a person, gets teleported either, if they're a special tree, to a very specific place, or in most cases, very randomly. There's a scene in a later season where a guy gets teleported into a wall. So there's that. Victor demonstrates this by throwing a rock into this tree. And he says, I think he actually says he never noticed this one before, something like that. The rock kind of drops behind him. He was trying to demonstrate to this kid that, yeah, this is a magical tree. But that rock really could have appeared anywhere, like anywhere across town.
How does it do that?
I don't know.
So basically, that was very lucky. That was a very lucky demonstration of how the faraway trees work.
You think it's possible to have a physical reaction to this place? Maybe something you might normally diagnose as one thing on the outside, but here it's...
So all through this season so far, the sheriff's hand has been like steadily beginning to shake a little more. And first it's like, okay, what's causing it? Because immediately you want to think the town is causing it. No, he actually has a like medical condition.
Boyd.
I'm fine.
But in regards to the shaky hand, it doesn't really come into play at all, really. Like, not in up to season 3 anyway, so it's not really that important. This is what I mean about the writers. They really set up a lot of stuff, and it's like when you, in a story, when you have set up for a mystery or a thing that's happening, you just immediately expect there to be like a resolution. Like your dungeon master is setting up a mystery for you to solve. But not with these writers. I think with these writers, they're like, let's set up a bunch of mysteries and let's figure it out later.
In terms of the content of it, you look at stories, you think, well, what are stories but mystery boxes?
Which is terrible. I really hope that that's not what they're doing.
Is there anything else going on that we should know about?
Nathan discovers that one of her outfits has a lot of blood on it. This is what she was wearing when she murdered Jade's friend in the first episode. I guess because she was hearing voices in her head. And these voices, again, in this episode, speak to her and tell her to kill Jim's son. I don't know why she's listening to them. Like, if I were hearing voices, I would tell the others, especially in this town where, like, anything can happen.
Everyone enters from different parts of the country, on different roads and different places.
Jim, of course, is trying to figure out, okay, how is that happening? And his wife really is not being, or his wife, Tabitha, is not really being that helpful. She's like,
Jim, everyone here has asked the same question.
And I'll never understand this logic. I feel like if you're in a situation like this, where you're trapped in a town, you should never dissuade somebody from trying to solve or figure out why, Like, yeah, they ask the question a million times, I'll be the 1,000,001. And while Jim is trying to cope with their new situation, Jade is doing the same. He went to the local bar.
You guys built a bar in this fucking place?
Which used to be a gas station. He sees them all like rats in a maze, just being content with eating the cheese. And this is where his like arrogance, his ego comes into play a little bit.
That radio you brought in, well, if you're so goddamn smart, why don't you figure out how to get it broadcasting, huh?
And for me, I was like, wait a second. What was Jade's plan with that radio anyway? Like, I thought his plan was to fix it. He needed the bartender to tell him to fix it. What was he just wanted to just hold the radio? All right, so this scene, which I wanted to get to, has like it's like a good window, I think, into the minds of the writers in a way. There's a wall in Jim's house. This is what he's been writing on to try to figure out this mystery, why they're stuck in this town. On this wall, you see a lot of questions being posed, right? So with the talismans, you see like, okay, how many are there? You have that like written on the wall. These are questions the writers want you to be asking or expect you to be asking. Like, can we make them? How do they work? And like, where do they come from? And you have creatures written on the wall, and then there's like arrows pointing towards like, can they be killed? Does light kill them? And why do they move so slowly? And there's this question about the livestock, and I think it's already mentioned, but like their livestock that they use for food, the chicken and whatever, it just kind of appears at the edge of the town. Like, where do they come from and why don't the creatures eat them? Which is a legitimate question. Why do the creatures only seem to be interested in eating people? And this is where a big scene happens. So Nathan, worried about his little sister, goes to Father Catchery to tell him all about what he thinks is going on, which is that she might be potentially a murderer and that she's pretty dangerous. She's been like hearing voices. Mother Catchery is like,
Nathan, you should have come to me much sooner.
okay, you should have told me this sooner. And he like runs off to town. Sarah's plan right now is to murder Paul Rudd's son. That seems so weird to say. To murder Jim's son. So she tricks Tabitha into this secret cubby hole, I guess, in a barn, and like locks it, but is stopped by Nathan, her older brother, when she notices what's going on.
This is how we go home.
Let him go.
And she tries to stop her, but in the struggle, she like spins around and accidentally and he falls over, and she's like shocked, and like obviously it's a very tragic scene of what just happened there. Everybody's gathered around, and they gotta. So Sarah at this moment runs off into the woods, and they're just like, okay.
Oh, she ran off into the woods.
And if she comes back before dark, then we'll handle it.
Very little chance in hell that she would actually survive being out there on her own at night with all these creatures around. And one last mystery, one last question is posed at the very end of this episode, where Tabitha writes on the wall, did we even survive the crash? Which suggests, I guess, okay, another possibility, which actually is proven wrong by season 3. I'm just gonna throw that out there because this is a mystery that is solved. It is possible maybe it was an afterlife that everybody was kind of a part of or something.
Just keep asking these questions.
Before she goes on her murder spree, or tries to anyways. She also has a seizure. So it suggests maybe the seizures usually happen to people that are sensitive to receiving messages from this town. The kid is seeing the creepy kid, just like Victor is, or Victor did. And then she's like getting messages and voices in her head. That's not overtly explained. It's something to think about because I think that will actually be explained. In my next video, I'll finish this season because I really want to get to season 3. Because like, okay, season 1, I think is great. Honestly, when I was watching the show initially, I thought season 1, I thought it was a limited series. I was like, season 1 and it's done. While I was watching season 1, I was thinking, I don't want this to end because they're going to wrap up the show real quick. I didn't know it was on season 3. I was still legitimately surprised with all the mysteries they're setting up. They can't escape the town by season 3. There is stuff that happens that legitimately is like interesting. Like I think the bus crash in a later season is cool. Good stuff, bad stuff, I'll admit. There's some questions that I would love to be answered. One thing that I don't know if I mentioned in my first video was that these are the writers from Lost.
Okay, this is an island, and in the center of the island is a light. We'll call him the Man in Black. The Man in Black is evil incarnate.
Which should set up red flags all over because it's not all the writers from Lost, but you do have some. And if you watch Lost, you know that how they solve certain mysteries is not quite satisfying. It's not as satisfying as it could be.
This is certainly no laughing matter.
Please let me know what you think in the comment section below. Are you excited for season 4, which is currently in production? But are you also frustrated? Are you among those? Because I am too. I'm also on that boat. But anyways, thank you for watching. Please like the video and subscribe if you want to. I'm not going to force you. And then.
Jerky made from ghouls he eats. Toughest cowboy nobody beats.